Hello, bonjour, and welcome to your new Bonner Private Wines video. Exciting times today. Of course, the best part of being a member of the Bonner Wine Club is when you get to actually taste the new wines that we've selected for you exclusively, the wines that we've cherry-picked, picking some of the most interesting wines in a single country to make your taste buds experience new flavors, new wine flavors, and to make you travel through authentically good wines. So I'm going to talk to you through the 6 wines that you will find in your upcoming shipment of wines from Spain. This time I will tell you a little bit about where they come from, their story behind the wines, and tell you what you should expect or look for in terms of their flavor profiles, as well as the type of food you should consider pairing with them. But let's go and get right into it. Now, there is only one white wine in your Spanish wine selection, and that's a little bit because, yes, Spain is more famous for its red wines, and perhaps it makes more outstanding reds than it makes outstanding whites. But believe me, we've put a really fantastic white in your Spanish wine selection. This is not any Spanish white. Briefly, for the context, this wine that is called Papa is an estate bottled wine made by a small producer in a region that is called Valdeorras, and that's in the northwestern part of Spain. This is an area that is not like the rest of Spain that we all have in mind, that is really hot and sunny. This is more under an oceanic influence, so it's quite cool, it's quite green as well, and it's quite a bit rainy too. So that northwestern corner of the country is where you find the best whites in Spain because it is cooler, so it makes for crisper white wines. The grape that this wine is made of is called Godello, and it's not all that famous internationally, but it's a very trending grape that is actually believed. Many wine critics now say that Godello, this very type of wine, is going to be putting Spain on the map for its white wines as well. What I love in this wine is that it's the dry, crisp and refreshing style of white wine, but it's not at all aggressive. It's actually quite smooth and oily in the texture. When you taste it, it's got those delicate flavors of white peach and a bit of melon. There's a bit of apricot there, a bit of white plum I should say. I think you get this picture. It's all about those white stone fruit characters, which are actually quite rare, and they're so delicate, so salivating, so refined. It's not in your face fruity, it's fruity, but it's fine. I think suave is the perfect term for it. It's salivating, it's juicy, it's vibrant. It's nearly perfect. For food pairing, I doubt you will ever find a white wine that is more versatile than this, because it's dry, zingy, it's smooth, it's acidic but not too much, it's fruity but not too much. So anything that goes with white wine will go with this wine. It's a perfect wine to go with seafood, obviously, but the white meats, the cheeses, the tapas, anything that you want to throw at it, have fun with it. Fantastic wine. You can keep this wine for another few years. Give it a try if you like it. You can stock up. This is a wine that ages really well, so you can stock up on it and take 2, 3, 5 years to drink it. It'll still be perfect. But let's get tasting the red wines now. So here you have a wine that's made from the iconic Spanish grape that is called Tempranillo, but in this case this Protos Crianza wine, that's the name of the wine, is not made in Rioja like the other wines in your selection, but in an area that is not far at all from Rioja, that is called Ribera Del Duero. We talked about Tempranillo in last week's video, so if you haven't watched it, if you want to go a little bit deeper into the grape that makes this wine, I suggest you catch up with either last week's newsletter from the club or go on bonnerprivatewines.com, where you can always find my videos and much more. So Ribera del Duero, to sum it up, is a region that's perhaps a little less famous than Rioja internationally, but just as famous and reputable in Spain itself. The Spanish absolutely love it. They are just as good as Rioja wines, and in Spain at least just as famous, made also from Tempranillo. So you will find that this wine is a fantastic introduction to Spanish Tempranillo wine. When you get to taste it, yeah, it's fruity with those brilliant notes of cherry that are so typical of the Tempranillo grape, but you also got this black olive, the fig, the tobacco scents that we talked about last week. It's a little grapey, but it's soft enough at the same time. It's minty, it's spicy, so this is really the perfect wine to get a feel for what a good Tempranillo wine tastes like, and a perfect wine for your tapas, your appetizers. Fantastic with cheeses, with tacos, with dips, with charcuteries, the cured meats, the crostinis. A fantastic introduction wine to the wines from Spain. You can pretty much throw anything at it. Again, it'll be fantastic with anything and pretty much everything. This is a wine that is made to be drunk relatively young, so I'd suggest you drink it this year in 2020. It'll hold on very well for the next 2 or 3 years, but get a feel for your Spanish wine selection with this particular wine. Try it now or soon, and it'll give you a taste, a bit of a pre-taste of what the wonders of the Tempranillo wines that we are going to be exploring now from the wines of Rioja. This is slightly simpler wines than the others. It's still fantastic, and it's got everything that you should expect from a good Spanish wine. But let's move on to the wines from Rioja, the jewels, the 4 jewels in your selection. Let's go. So we are looking at a wine that is called Manzanos Rioja Gran Reserva, vintage 2008. This wine is made by a family-owned bodega, a winery owned by the Fernández de Manzanos family. That's been making wine for 5 generations since 1890, so a historic producer in the famous region of Rioja. This is a blend made from very old vines that are older than 50 years old, on slope vineyards and on clay limestone soils. It's got 50% Tempranillo, and like they often do in Rioja, they blend it with a little bit of Grenache, 30% to add roundness and texture, with 20% Masuelo that brings in more acidity and more grip to the blend and the texture. This particular wine is aged for 5 years in American and French oak barrels. So 5 years is quite a long time, and this is why this is called a Gran Reserva. This particular style of wine that is aged for very long time in oak barrel. So this is an archetypal style of Rioja wine in this very classic traditional winemaking style, blended from different grapes to use different terroirs and different grapes to make a harmonious whole. When you taste the wine, you get some vibrant notes of fresh cherry flavors. Again, it's zingy, it's fruity, it's vibrant on the fruit character, but also at the same time you get strong influence of well integrated oak as well, because it stayed so long in oak barrels. So this gives the wine a little bit of an austere note of roasted cocoa beans and coffee if you'd like. It feels a little bit ashy, like wood ashes, again from staying so long in the wood, and this gives some sort of savoriness to the wine. A little bit like when you drink coffee, a positive austerity, but at the same time you get the smooth texture given by the long aging that smoothen the tannins in the barrel. You get the vanilla, the caramel from the oak that's infused in the wine as well. So the whole has many different layers, different facets that you don't commonly find in other types of wine, because not many wines outside of Rioja are made using such a long aging in wine barrels. The Honorable wine by Gomez Cruzado, that's the name of the wine. Honorable or Honorable, as the Spanish would say. This is made from the oldest vineyards on the winery's estate. And we are in the northern part of Rioja, which is very famous because it's a little bit colder up there than the rest of the region, and the soils are very limestone rich. So the terroir that gives a lot of wines made in that area, some freshness and some precision to the wine. So again, this is a very special selection of a wine from vines that are again over 50 years old. This is a bit of the threshold in Rioja for very old vines or younger vines. Now this one is made in more of a Bordeaux style of winemaking, or the more international style of winemaking that's also used in Napa Valley, for example. So we are aging with 100% new oak barrels, in this case French oak only, for 18 months rather than the 5 years for the Manzano. So this is a very modern style of Rioja wine. When you get to taste the wine, I love the mixed berries liqueur flavors in it. It makes it very, very juicy, very vibrant on the fruit character especially. It's also got some prune and a bit of black olive as well, which gives it a little sweet, savory feel. And while you had a lot of cocoa beans on the Manzano's wine, here it's more on the chocolate, slightly sweeter style, more vanilla. Even though it's just as dry, but it feels a little bit sweeter, a little bit gentler on your palate, especially with this very smooth texture. When you taste it, pay attention, particular attention to the length of these wines and the many layers that it delivers, the spiciness, the cocoa beans, the chocolate, the coffee, the spices, the fruitiness, the juiciness, it's salivating. Pay attention to how long this wine actually is. You will realize how good and sensational all the potential of pleasure that it can actually give. Now, El Sacramento, that's the name of this wine that we're going to be tasting now. This is made by a relatively young winemaker that's called Edicion Cordonnier, whose father and his family have operated a very reputable fine wine distribution business in Belgium. Hence the French-sounding name of Edicion Cordonnier. And that's also been, the family has also been making wine in Bordeaux. So a winemaking family as well as a wine merchant family. But they also have some Spanish blood in the lineage in the families, and they bought a vineyard back in 2011, and since they've put the most attention to detail, to crafting this pure, finest possible wine that they can. So even though this is also a blend, we are here more on a single vineyard expression of Rioja from a relatively small estate. You're actually pretty lucky to have this wine because they are wine merchant distributor in Belgium. Pretty much all of this wine goes in Belgium and very little goes to the US. If anything, I think you are one of the very few Americans that are able to taste this wine. When you taste it, yeah, what I love in El Sacramento, in this wine, is how fruit driven the wine is. You get the pure expression of fruit, almost like an excellent fruit, juicy cherry juice with big burst of blackcurrant and cassis, so mixed red berries, a little bit of blueberry, a little bit of cranberry, raspberry, blackberry. It's all packed in there, very fruity. Very fresh as well. I think the winemaker Edicion likes to pick the grapes quite early to really retain the exceptional fruit freshness and have wines that are less heavy and less ripe in their expression. It still has some weight and composure, it's still profound, it's quite deep as well. It's got this backbone of dense and structure, it's very lively and fresh and exciting. So probably this is even a more modern approach to winemaking there. You had the very traditional style, you had the Bordeaux style, which is kind of the international style of the years, let's say 2000, and now we are definitely more on the single vineyard, very fresh expression of the terroir, the salinity, the saltiness, the crispiness of a single vineyard wine, which is a little bit more in the very modern style of Rioja wines. So you have a very excellent palette here of slightly different styles, and you can see the evolution of winemaking techniques. But let's move on to our last wine, which is Gran Edicion Limitada, very limited edition. It's a wine made by a very reputable winery, bodega in Rioja, that's called Bodega Slan, which is one of the staple names in Rioja, together with other names like Marques de Riscal, La Rioja Alta, Muga, the staple names in Rioja that you may have heard about. Gran is very, very famous and very, very respected in Rioja. And they make a wide range of different wines, but what we have here, what we've picked here is not any of their wines. We've picked the Edicion Limitada, so the limited edition. And again, this is more of a single vineyard wine that they make with a very special vineyard that they love, because guess why they love it? Because it makes great wine. This vineyard is called El Rincón, understand the corner. I couldn't get my hands on exactly the vintage that you've tasted. I couldn't get my hands on it because it's so rare for exactly making and tasting it in front of you for the video, but I've tasted a few different vintages of this very wine, and here is what it tastes like, what you should expect. Oh yes, this is an absolutely fantastic wine, a very, very complete wine. It's got the fruit, it's got the oak, it's got the sweet and savory elements, it's got the density of tannins, it's got the smoothness of the texture, it's got somewhat all of the different elements that we talked about, the length. It's a very, very complete wine, and somewhat it encompasses all the different elements that we've talked about, the spiciness, the fruitiness, the ashiness, the cocoa beans, the coffee. Everything seems to be packed in there. It's an extremely, extremely well crafted wine. So perhaps this is even the jewel in the crown of the Spanish wine selection. They are all very well crafted. My favor goes to this one, but it's just personal. We all have different tastes. For food pairings, well, all of these wines are quite powerful reds, so go with rather big flavors with the grilled meats, the rich stews, the cheeses, the tasty pasta dishes, for example, these type of flavorsome, powerful dishes as well. So those are refined wines as well, so they will go just as well with simple foods, but even better with gastronomic, sophisticated meals as well. In terms of aging, I think the first two reds that I talked about here today, the Protos Ribera del Duero wine, as well as the Manzanos Gran Reserva, this is already a 2008 wine. These wines can be drunk within 2 or 3 years. They'll be fantastic still in 2 or 3 years, but they can be drunk now. Those three other wines, the last wines, the Rioja wines that I've talked about, those are fantastic to drink now if you like your wines to be fresh and fruity and powerful, and experience now how good they can be if you like them or not. But if you want to stock up and buy more and age them, those three will age definitely really well for at least 5 years. They will be fantastic in 10 years if you're patient enough, possibly 15-20 years if we're talking about the last one. And that was it for me today. I hope you've learned a little bit more something today. The more we know, the more we enjoy our wines. I hope you enjoy your Spanish wine selection. I hope you know a little bit better the story behind them and what to expect from them. I will see you soon in the wonderful world of the Bonner Private Wines video, in the video world and the world of wine. Au revoir, bye bye, hasta luego.